Welcome to the Chicago Home Partner Podcast. I'm Samuel Ciochon, along with my co-host Amanda McMillan. We discuss the Chicago real estate market. Our goal is to educate you on what's actually happening out there and how it impacts your real estate goals.
And we're back.
And we are back.
We're super excited. We just actually passed our year anniversary of this podcast.
Happy 1 year. Where's my cake?
I thought we were celebrating with champagne. Let's get real.
Yeah. We're popping bottles after this.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a great podcast today. We've got some fantastic topics that we're going to hit in on.
We do. Yeah.
I'm super excited. We're going to talk a little bit more about some different investment strategies, right? We always say no to Airbnb, but there's a lot of other things out there. We're going to talk some neighborhood spotlight. This month, we're going to feature River North. So we're going to talk the River North. That's your part of town.
I live in River North. Yeah, it's so
fantastic.
Fun. I'm super pumped.
What else we've got today?
We're going to talk whether you should be a renter or a buyer and whether that makes sense to you. We're going to talk about world events. There's so much going on and it feels so heavy. We're going to talk about the Ukraine war, what's going on in Israel, how that impacts local Chicago. So,
yeah, that's great. I think we're even going to talk a little bit about the presidential election in 2024.
Next year. I don't want to think about that either.
Anyways, and then we're going to wrap it up and talk about really great tips for saving for a down payment so you can become a buyer in 2024.
Yeah, love this.
We got a lot of great topics to talk about today, so why don't we dive in?
Yeah, sounds good. So our first question actually came in, and it was different investment strategies, how to get started and how to grow. So you're really good at this because you started as a small little mom and pop rental agency, essentially. And now you have a lot of rentals.
Well, we took personally, I can talk personally and professionally. Obviously, we see a lot of different things and there's a lot of different ways for people to get in. Personally, one of the things that we did, and I'm not going to say I invented it. In fact, one of my mentors did something similar to it. I loved the idea, so I started to grow with it. And then I diversified from there. Was I bought my first property because I wanted to get on that real estate ladder. But then what I wanted to do is I bought a property knowing that that was going to be a property that I was going to live in for a bit, have some of the advantages of ownership. But my longer term plan with that property was for that to become a rental property when I bought my next property. So I was going to keep it and buy more from that perspective. Now, the interesting thing on that is when you're looking for something to buy that you know isn't a long-term home and you're really trying to put more emphasis on what it will be as a rental property versus what it will be for you.
So your very first property you bought, what was the number one thing that you were looking for outside of like you're able to rent it because there's restrictions out there?
I think twofold. As you said, I needed to make sure that it was something that I could rent because I was on a very limited budget. It was going to be in some level of an association, so I needed to make sure it was. I worked for a looser association. It's actually, I bought a townhouse down in Pilsen almost 20 years ago now. But it was
so you bought something in an up-and-coming neighborhood.
Okay. So we moved from a really established neighborhood to something that was a little bit more challenged at the time. Obviously, it's a fantastic neighborhood now, but we pioneered a bit. We went into a neighborhood that a lot of people weren't. We bought a townhouse that had a looser association so that we knew that the rentals were okay. And then we just made sure that it had things that would be appealing to renters in a longer term. We wanted proximity to transportation, proximity to stuff. There wasn't a lot of stuff in the neighborhood at that time, but where we could see it coming in on the main drags. We wanted overall rentability. We wanted in-unit laundry. We wanted lower assessments because once again, that worked into our numbers and in terms of how we looked at it. We wanted parking and we wanted functionality of space. Now, I won't tell you it was a property that inspired me by any means. It wasn't something that really spoke to me in the sense that I absolutely wanted to live there. It was my dream home. But it was a part of my dream home because it was a part of my investment plan. So we lived there for 2 years, loved living there, fantastic neighbors, enjoyed everything about it. But then when the time was come, we moved to our next house kind of under that same idea. And then we started to grow from there. Now our next house was a little bit different in the sense that we thought we were going to buy an old Victorian, renovate it and move on. Well, our investment strategy went a little awry with that one because once we renovated it, we loved it and we never moved. So that was an investment in ourselves.
So did you buy in like a smaller neighborhood so that you could get an entry point, or was it for you knew like it was going to blow up and so you were looking at it from an appreciation standpoint over the 20 years?
So the original one in Pilsen, right? We knew that it was going to be a long-term hold. And what we saw that Pilsen was a neighborhood that I had a lot of belief in, that it would do very, very well, mostly because of proximity to downtown and to the city. If you look
close.
I always say, if you look opposite, you're pretty much at the heart of Lincoln Park if you take the north side versus the south side. So the location was a big thing for us back then.
Oh, I gotcha.
Even when we moved to our next house, the one that we were supposed to renovate and leave, which we never left, at that point in time, we went just off the fringe of a neighborhood where we thought we could get some good return on neighborhood investment rather than buying in the heart of the most popular location from that perspective. Now, we've navigated a lot of different ways since then. One of our newer things that we're doing, newer being in the last 6 or 7 years, is Airbnb. Now you're gonna stop and say, wait a minute, Amanda, you told me.
But also your investment strategy lately has also been in other markets that you actually travel to as well. So it goes. It's almost kind of like a multifaceted thing for you guys, which is really
so that was where we shifted, is that knowing that Airbnb is very, very difficult in the city. We've talked about it ad nauseum over the last year. It's very difficult in the city. So we took that strategy and we put it into our own personal lifestyle. We have family in different locations. We like to travel certain places on a regular basis. So what we did was we bought properties there, which were more Airbnb friendly, so that we could use them to visit family and do what we like to do, but then also had those investments perform well for us in other pieces. And that's the one thing that I always tell people when people come to us and say, hey, I love the idea of Airbnb. Well, there is an avenue to do it in other places, but we have to make sure that just like in Chicago, you're doing it in places that you fully understand the local ordinances around it. Yeah. Because we did get caught. We got caught with our most recent purchase, which is our farm. We have a farm 2 hours from here. And where we got caught was we weren't as well aware of some of the ordinances on it.
Oh, really?
In the sense of, not the ordinances. We knew we could do it. Yeah. We didn't know the small town was going to be so tough with regards to inspecting the property and making us do so many renovations to the property to get our licensing.
Oh, interesting.
So,
okay. Well,
you live and learn.
Hey, yeah. Well, now you also have like the renovations in the property. Hopefully that means that you put the sweat equity in it. It raises the
value. A lot of sweat equity.
There's a ton of things there.
Absolutely.
There's pros and cons around it.
So what do you feel, talking about investment strategies, we have a lot of clients that want to do something in Chicago, more limited budget. Where do you think one of the best entry-level investments is?
Well, it's coming out this month, so by the time this podcast airs, but I also think multi-units right now, it's hard because multi-units right now are not cash flowing as well because interest rates are higher, but it's a longer term investment that you're thinking about. It's money that you're going to put up front on a monthly basis. You're probably covering some of that extra cost, but then when interest rates come down, you refinance, it'll be, rents will come up a little bit more.
So from a multi-unit investment, and we're talking 2 to 4 units.
2 to 4 units.
Are those ones that you're saying clients are living in them and renting out the other units?
Yes.
Okay, so an owner-occupied multi-unit.
Yeah, it's an owner-occupied unit. And the nice thing is, again, talking about what's coming out in November, Fannie and Freddie Mac just changed their guidelines to go from a 15% down payment requirement down to 5%.
Huge.
Which is huge.
Huge.
But again, with the interest rates, it is causing the payments to be a little bit higher because you're not putting as much money down. So it is just one of those things that you have to understand. You're still having somebody pay for your mortgage.
Parts of it.
Part of it.
Yes.
To cover some of that, but also understand it may be a longer term investment.
For certain.
And then you can hopefully live in it for 2 years or 4 years or however long, and then you flip it to the next one.
For certain. So, I'd say the other thing that we see a lot, one of the things that I think is the safest entry levels are smaller condos, right? Somebody doesn't have the budget for a multi-unit. They can get expensive. I say dirt is expensive, but entry level, a $200,000 condo, they want to kind of get in there. Now, the things on that, they're typically not going to cash flow.
Yeah.
People don't buy those under the idea that they're going to be making money. In fact, some of them even, especially with interest rates, will lose money from month to month. But those are typically things, it's entry level. You've got management in place. It's a relatively safe investment. It's easier. And those are usually long-term plays, right?
Well, and also your items that are in your unit actually don't break down. There's less things to
go wrong.
So it is sometimes really nice to buy just a condo really quickly, make that your first establishment and then move on and yes, grow and get a little bit bigger the next time around and go from there.
Well, and those are things that you're letting somebody else pay your equity down.
Totally.
Your money's coming that way. You're not going to make a ton month over month. In fact, you might not make any, but you're going to, at the end of the day, you're going to have more equity the longer you hold it.
Yeah.
And that you can transition into something that's a little bit more profitable. Just like real estate, investment real estate, it's a ladder as well. You need to start somewhere. You need to get your feet wet. You need to start moving on and kind of growing in that based on what your comfortability is. Because we say it all the time, an investment property with a great tenant is fantastic. An investment property with a terrible tenant is awful.
Yes.
So anyways, a lot of great ideas in there.
Yeah.
Let's move on. This is I can't believe we're talking about this. Holiday fun. What's on your to-do list?
Holidays. So I'm not a big holiday person. So I know I never have been, but I would probably say we're
Bah humbug, Samuel.
Divorced families, like the whole
It's a lot of pressure.
Splitting, and then going all different places. My family's all over the country.
But
So
maybe it's about making new traditions.
Yeah, my new tradition is sitting on my ass at my house. I would love that. Actually, my new tradition that I really want to start doing is traveling during Christmas.
That's a great idea.
I think that is like the most amazing thought process, just to like go to a beach or go to
Check out a little bit.
or do something and just like go. But
Unfortunately,
I'll probably go to Wisconsin.
Take the actual holiday
Yes.
out. Chicago is an amazing place to be during the holidays.
Okay.
That's what I want.
Okay, cool. So Chris Kindlemart is always one of my favorites.
We reeled him back in there, guys. He was getting a little dark.
Yeah, you want to talk about my trauma from my life?
No.
No, I'm kidding. But no. So Christmas in Chicago is like amazing. You have so many different things that are going on. So Chris Kindlemart is always a fascinating one. I like the one downtown better than the one up in Wrigleyville. I love ice skating. I don't know. I just think it's so nice.
We just started ice skating with the girls, right? I grew up ice skating, right?
Yes.
Matt grew up ice skating.
Yeah.
We just started ice skating with the girls at McFetridge Park.
Yes.
It's like so cheap. Anyways,
Is it? Yeah.
yes, we're definitely doing the ice skating this year, for certain.
Good. Perfect. Yeah, I like the ribbon
Honing my
downtown.
skills.
Yeah, I like the ribbon downtown.
Yeah.
The Wicker Park one. The one up in Westridge is really great.
Yeah.
So there's so many different like ice skating rinks around. But I also really like, so I don't do this every year. It's typically every other, but I love going to a Christmas tree like lot, like the old school lots where it's like a vacant plot of land and they just like have Christmas trees hanging out. I love getting those.
I can understand that. Well, for us, Christmas trees are a really big event.
Yeah.
Well, I think you know it.
You go to
There
the
is
farm,
the Dollinger Christmas Tree Farm. Legitimately, look it up. I tell you, people, Lanark, Illinois, it is for real. It is part of the family. It's right by our farm, and you cut your own tree. You walk through their fields of trees,
that's so cool.
and you pick out the one you want. You cut it down, and they do it. You can do wreath making there. It's just so much fun, right? The kids love it. It's an event a day, and if you haven't been out that direction, it's absolutely stunning. So pretty. Rolling hills. Everyone always thinks Illinois is flat. It is not flat there. But I love the holidays in the city. For me, like just the people in general, right? People are excited. The lights. It makes the early evenings a little bit better.
Yeah.
There's just so many things to do in terms of, a lot of the stuff that we're involved in now. It's going to be more of the kid-oriented stuff. But, there's a couple of great Broadway shows. I know Cirque du Soleil has a holiday-themed show going on.
Really? Oh, wow.
I think it was Twist the Night Before Christmas.
Interesting.
Yeah, you should check that one out. I think it's going to be stunning. I know that there is the, what's the other one? Bah Humbug.
Scrooge.
Not Scrooged. Why am I forgetting the word? Not Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, yeah, that's it.
No, with the green guy.
Oh, Grinch.
Grinch. How the Grinch Stole Christmas is playing downtown for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's when I'm going to try and take the kids to.
I love that.
The Orient Express.
Have you been to the thing on Navy Pier, like the light show that they do inside with? And then
We
they
haven't
also
been to
have a
that one
skating
yet.
rink in there too.
Yeah, no, I know about the skating rink, but we haven't been to the light show. I mean, the windows in general, that was something that growing up, I'm not allowed to really say Marshall Fields anymore, Macy's, but their windows, just doing that.
Displays.
Yeah, I just think that there are so many neat events in the city, but skating, as I said, is big on our list this year for certain. We promised the girls the ribbon. The ice is kind of terrible, but it's still a fun thing to be doing with the backdrop of the city.
Yeah.
I am ready for it. It's the after Christmas part, after the holidays, after Hanukkah, after everything like that. That's when I was like, the cold wears away on me. now up, right? We started a new feature last podcast, our neighborhood spotlight. This episode, we're talking about River North, which is your area of expertise. Samuel lives in River North. He's a River North guy.
Breathe
You
and
love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been in River North for the last 12 years, and I'm off and on. I literally am like, all right, I'm going to go explore another neighborhood. And then I make it 6 months, maybe a year. And then I always come back to River North.
Right. It's in
just
your
like
blood.
one of those things.
So what are your favorite things about the River North?
I actually was just walking home the other night and I was just like, it's so mesmerizing. We went to Evie, which is the brand new restaurant on Michigan Avenue. It was where Bandero used to be. And so it's a family owned, it's Chicago based, and it's right on Michigan Avenue. So it was kind of really cool. They had a really good wine list. The sushi there was amazing. They had a bunch of other things as well.
I mean, if you're not eating well in River North, you're doing something wrong.
But it was so nice, like walking down Michigan Avenue at night. All the lights are on. Like, it's just,
there's something magical about it for certain.
Yeah, you just like look up and you're like, I cannot believe that we made this. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that it's so hard to, like, mountains are mountains because they're really beautiful, because that's like nature has done that, but we actually engineered all of these buildings to be built, and it is just and Chicago's the birthplace of high rises and advancing the high rise.
Right.
So it's just one of these like really cool areas.
No, and you're so right, because I'm a very outdoorsy person, right? I love to be in the country, out with my horses. I like doing all that stuff. But I remember very vividly when I looked at the city in that same filter, that same lens, where I looked at it as an artwork, right? Yeah. The fact that it was all working together, that all the lights, everything kind of came together in one. There's a beauty in it that I think is often missed.
Exactly. So yeah, I think like the politics and everything that happens in the world, like that sometimes gets
in the way.
It's so just majestic.
For certain.
So favorite things about this neighborhood is just like looking at everything and all of that. But I've actually gone to a couple new restaurants, which are so good. So Evie is the one that I tried the other week. They just opened up last month. Cipher it's on the corner of Orleans and Erie Street. It's a Middle Eastern restaurant, and they have like a rooftop deck for the summer. It's been a couple things over the last handful of years, but this new one, it was such good food.
I was amazing.
So impressed. And the cocktails were amazing. We had this espresso martini that was done with like Arabic coffee.
Wow.
And so it was an espresso martini just done a little differently. It was just like really kind of fascinating and interesting. So I was like really excited. And
that's
right
awesome.
down the street from my house. So
what are some of the other things that you like about River North? Take the scene out of it. What else is there to do? And
the scene, honestly, it's just like I live on the river, so like I love just walking down the river.
The riverfront is a huge deal.
The riverfront is huge. You have the river right there, which is on the south end, but also on the west end. So it's like I live by Montgomery Park, which is on the west side, but the south end with all the stuff and like the engineering feat again that we did to push the river in so that we actually have that. The art on the mart is really fun.
Well, a lot of people don't even know about the water taxis, right? You can take a water taxi from where you are downtown.
Yeah,
just like a regular taxi ride.
It, though. I literally have.
You live there.
I know, it's literally.
You have an assignment for next summer to take a water taxi.
The entrance is right across the street from my house.
You have commissioned that.
No excuse, but I just don't do it.
No, I think, and you're way more invested in the scene. Although I always have to give, anytime I have a shout out to give for Gene and Georgetti's, it's a staple of the neighborhood.
Yes.
Right. I lived next door because I lived in River North once upon a time too. I lived next door and I had so many fantastic meals there. I love the food. I love the people. I love everything about it. Yeah. But I think there's so many other things to it, right? the Merchandise Mart. The Merchandise Mart is an amazing place. Like the Googling at things, if you're interested in that, is amazing. Fun fact, the Merchandise Mart was the largest building built, square footage, when it was built in 1930 in the world.
Yes.
That's kind of fun.
I think it's fascinating that everyone from all over the world would come there because it was the central spot for
Right.
home
Home design.
and everything. Like, we are a mecca.
For
Fucking
certain.
love Chicago.
Oh, you know what else I'll put in there for a little, it's not even a hidden gem anymore, but people always forget it. Cafe Iberico over on LaSalle. Fantastic tapas place. Fantastic. I've been going there for 20 plus years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't think I know that one.
Really good. Over on LaSalle and I'm going to forget the cross street, maybe Huron.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Anyways, housing. Let's talk housing in River North.
Yeah. Housing.
I want a single family home on a big lot. Am I getting it in River North?
So you're not going to get a big lot. You'll get a small lot. There are a couple.
A sliver.
They actually are a couple single family homes that are in River North.
Yes.
They're going to be on the west side, and it's literally tiny lots.
Right.
So a standard Chicago lot is 25 by 125. I think these are 20 by.
If you're lucky.
I think they're like 75.
Row homes, very
They are.
very vertical.
But they're very vertical. They're 4-story tall.
Elevators in some
Elevator
of them.
building,
Yeah.
single family homes. But we have a bunch of condos, we have townhomes, we have a bunch of different price points.
For certain.
That's the one thing that I think is super fascinating about River North. There's a little bit of everything, and actually the price point to get in is not that bad.
Yeah, what I think a lot of people forget, we talk about a lot of the neighborhoods. When you get into larger buildings, you're going to have more of a surplus of one bedrooms, right?
Yeah,
In our smaller, more intimate buildings, it's harder to find one bedroom. So we have less supply. Those one bedrooms get more expensive. You get into an area with more high rises, you have more one bedrooms, more supply, even demand, and the pricing isn't as high. So that's why we do see quite a few of our first-time buyers gravitating towards that location, because it's a great location and we have more inventory for them.
Yeah, it's a perfect like starter little place. But then again, you have like the super high-end
Right.
homes,
Yes.
which,
You can spend a little or you can spend a lot.
yeah, I swear to God, my favorite is between the Fordham and 55 Erie and like the Cathedral District right there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Like, if
Very.
you could ever describe a perfect block, it's October 3rd on that corner.
You heard it here, people. October 3rd on this corner.
That's a Mean Girls reference.
Got it. Clearly, I missed it. Anyway, so River North offers a lot for a lot of different people. It is urban, it is fast paced, but there's still some great parks and stuff like that. It's a super neighborhood, which is what keeps pulling you back year after year. And every time you even try and leave, you don't want to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just the convenience. I just like the fact, I feel like when you live in River North, the nice thing about it is you go and you explore other neighborhoods as well, just because the transportation is super there. I feel like most people get stuck in their neighborhoods or in the neighborhoods just directly around it, where this you like can go.
You're kind of like an artery.
It's the artery. Next one.
Okay.
All right. Rent or buy? What suits you?
Oh, this is a question we get a lot, right? Especially as people are looking to their next year goals. If they're renting or buying, what is the best for them?
Totally.
I think a lot of times it's hard for people to look holistically at what they're looking to do. For the rental option, I think the biggest thing that it adds to the equation is convenience. You can be transient and you can be in a convenient style, right? You can come in and you can leave, not when you want, but on a allotted time frame. Every 12 months you can decide what you do next. You're not locked in. You don't have to worry about some of the longer term objectives. So when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I'm moving to Chicago for 2 years, and then I'm getting to leave and I'm not going to stay longer. I've got a residency, I've got a work contract, something like that, but it's a limited amount of time. Right off the bat, that's somebody that I'm either going to tell, I would absolutely be looking to rent. If you are interested in buying, because obviously there are some financial investments in that, then the thought process has to be longer than when they're here, right? Kind of like we were talking about investments before, that we have a lot of people that say, hey, I'm only going to be there for 2 years, but maybe I'll buy there and then I rent it out after that.
Yeah, because then you have closing costs that you have to factor in. A lot of people forget like just the month, they think of just the monthly payment. Like, oh, I can afford this, but the closing cost is what really hinders that 2 year sub plan.
For certain. We always talk about the cost to sell and the cost to buy. I roughly say, right, before any new taxes or anything changes, if you add together both sides, it's typically going to be somewhere between 10 to 11% for the cost to sell and buy of that purchase price. So if we're thinking 2 years and we're just looking to break even on pricing, not talking about the equity you've earned or anything like that, you're basically hedging a bet and saying, I need this property to appreciate at least 5 to 6% every year for me to break even. 5 to 6% a year for us is a pretty hefty number from that perspective. So we, you and I, tend to be a little bit more conservative in that, saying, hey, if you're in and out in 2 years and you don't want to stick around any longer, you don't want to hold property in Chicago,
put more money down, or just have flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's a rent all day long, unless the market's at a very, very unusual point, which obviously we don't talk, we don't know that stuff till we're in it. But if you need the flexibility to move in that. Now, on the other hand, you're looking to buy, right? You think you might be a buyer. If you are planning to be in your next home for 3 to 5 years, right? That's somebody that realistically should be taking a good consideration at becoming a buyer, because, as I say, I really like all the people that rent my rental properties because they're paying my mortgage down. So if you're a renter and you plan to be there for a longer period of time, you're doing that for somebody else. Now, one of the big hesitancies that I think we get is, especially with young first-time buyers, right? And this is typically a younger conversation. People are at a forefront of saying, I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know if my job's going to change. My relationship status is going to change. If I'm in a relationship, I don't know if I'm going to have babies by then. There's a lot of things that could impact somebody and almost paralyze them from moving forward because they're so scared of that, right?
Yeah, it's a commitment.
So what do we talk about? We talk about one of the biggest features that I look for in a home for somebody that is unsure of where their life path is taking them. Flexibility. It's a magic word. Flexibility. What does flexibility mean? It means that how you live in the space can be flexible. There's room for a work from home office. There's room if a child comes. There's room if the spouse moves in. The floor plan has the ability to grow or change with your needs of it versus just being something that works one way. Or, as we talked about, the ability to you move on and rent it out. That's flexibility and an option as well. But if you are looking to buy, but you're hesitant to buy because you're afraid that your life pattern might change, make sure the property has some flexibility in A, how you live in it, B, what you do with it when it no longer suits you. So I think that that's really an important thing.
And make sure you're trying to rent it longer term, because that can affect it too. Because if we only have a renter in for 1 year to build some equity up, it may not show well. We may have issues showing it like that. So it really is, it's a longer term play no matter what. So no matter what, you should be looking at 4 to 5 years.
Exactly. And as we say, we're going to advise somebody 4 to 5 years. If things look great in 2 years, we can absolutely run with it, right? If the market's at a point where you're going to do well, that's fine. But that's typically not the plan. We don't plan on the what ifs. We plan on the tried and tested. And if the what ifs present themselves, then we can jump on and we can enjoy that ride. So no, that's, realistically why we talk so much about flexibility in a home purchase, right? Flexibility of space, flexibility of how you use it, flexibility in your longer term plan. If you come in to a home purchase with options, here's plan A, here's plan B, here's plan C, no matter what happens in the marketplace, you're going to be able to fare well. And no matter what happens in your own life circumstances, you're going to do fine as well. So,
well, the other thing that I was going to point out is we have that new app tool that we have access to that can calculate the rent to own and those and see where the break even point is versus what your cost is for renting versus your purchase price and all of that. So it kind of is a cool inverse.
That though, it shows you where the actual break even point is.
With closing costs.
But it also doesn't talk to you about your equity.
It doesn't.
So it'll say here's the absolute date in which all your numbers will, from an expense standpoint, where it will, and we're happy to run it for everybody, or anybody, one of the two, and everybody and everybody. No, but it basically shows you where your cost is identical. Usually that number is somewhere between 2.5 to 3 years, but that doesn't take into account any of the financial gains through paying down equity, any appreciation. Well, no, we can do it with appreciation.
Yeah, we can do it with appreciation.
Just not the equity.
And we can do it with appreciation of rent over time.
For certain.
That's because
rentals get expensive every year. So no, it's in, as we always say, it's a more specific conversation, but there's a lot of good food for thought in terms of if you're thinking about if 2024 is the year that you do go from a renter to a buyer, there's a few things to run with.
Well, actually, I had a client reach out to me this week about this question.
Yeah?
And yeah, so he found his dream apartment. It overlooks Wrigley Field.
Okay.
And that is like, he wanted it from his living room. It's a rental building though.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I love this. I do not want to move, but I want to park my money into real estate so that I'm at least building equity. And so we
Sure.
like talked about, okay, well, what are the break-even points? Does it make sense for you to actually buy an investment property on the side
Sure.
while
you rent for yourself?
And he's like, it may make sense. At least like, I know I'm renting, but at least I'm building something up, because
Yes.
that was something that's so unique. And unfortunately, our market, because there's not a ton of new construction, all of it is rental properties.
There's a
And
lot
so
of newer
if
rental
you want
buildings.
certain amenities, certain lifestyle
Yeah.
things, that is one option. But you could always do something on the side as well.
For certain.
If you wanted to.
No, there's different ways for certain.
Yeah, no right or wrong way.
Okay, we're going to get heavy for a minute.
Okay.
World events, what's the impact on real estate? Obviously, there's a lot going
There's
on
a
in the world.
lot going on, and it is super heavy out there, unfortunately, at this moment.
There is. My heart hurts for a lot of parts of the world right now. And it is a very overwhelming time.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we even do in our day-to-day lives feel very mundane when we know that other people are struggling and suffering and fighting on a way that we just can't comprehend. That being said, we still have to do the mundane. We still have to pull ourselves together. We have to assess and understand how some of the things specifically happening on the other side of the world are impacting us. We have a lot of things coming at us within the States as well. A lot of the big ones that we're getting right now is, what is the impact of the wars overseas, the war in the Ukraine and the war with Israel, Gaza, Hamas? How is that impacting our real estate?
I think luckily or unluckily, I think the Ukraine war has been around for a long time now. It initially had a huge impact on interest rates. And so interest rates started climbing, and it had a lot of impact on gas prices and all that stuff. And so it did affect us initially. I think now it's kind of built into our economy. Now the double whammy is this new one with the war on Israel. And hopefully that is going to have us stall out on some interest rates. So it kind of on the flip end where, there's now so much world uncertainty that, okay, what are we doing in terms of interest rates and making sure that our economy stays strong, but still fighting that inflation that we've seen over the last year?
For me, the way that I see that we have this impact on these big events are twofold. Number one, I call it the pause, right?
Yeah.
What happens is that consumers are distracted.
Yeah.
Consumers are sensitive. Consumers are worried, and consumers are scared. All rightfully so. There is a lot of things, no matter what you believe or who you believe in and what you think is right, there is a lot of unnecessary harm happening in our world. And because of that, we create pause as consumers, because we are so nervous about how the state of the world is going to come back and impact us. And I don't mean to make it selfish, but there is a level of selfishness to it.
Totally.
And that people are so worried about. The question that we get is, how will it impact real estate?
Yeah.
How will it come back to impact me? And because of that thought in itself, because of that question, it creates pause. And what pause is when our consumers slow down their purchases, they start to overthink a little bit, and they stop performing. And so what we can see, especially in certain markets that are more sensitive to these types of things, certain markets will literally just take an exhale, just take a step back as we see how dust is settling and as we see how we're distracting. Another thing that is absolutely part of the conversation is going to be the presidential election.
Oh, I was going to even say, even taken from a pause, it isn't even just global events; it's local events.
Local events.
Chicagoans especially, we're very sensitive to
Politics.
Everything. Politics. I mean, even talking about the presidential thing, but talking about the Bally's casino, talking about the
1000%
George Floyd riots that was happening, the pandemic. There's so many different
world events.
causes.
Absolutely.
That is why our market is really sensitive, but it's also interesting because other markets don't have these corrections, I feel like, as much as we do, and that's a little bit of it.
Well, you hear me say it a lot. I tell everyone that I think that us metropolitan people, and as I make fun of myself, I'm including myself in it, is that we tend to be overly sensitive to world events.
Totally.
Local events, world events,
Anything.
events in general.
Yes.
We over-sensitize them, maybe over-dramatize them because we're so worried about how they're going to come in and impact our lives.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, totally.
And because of that, I don't want to say overreact because that's not the right word, but we get nervous, we pause.
We digest it.
I
think that's it. Like, we need to digest it. We need to figure out what's going on. Then we can make decisions based on like that.
But so the nice thing about this, right? The thing that's really a benefit that I talk a lot about is that because we create these pauses in our marketplace, I truly believe that the reason that Chicago has been so stable throughout these last few years, where we saw so much of the country literally taking off flight with their real estate prices, we had so much of this reaction to everything that was going on in the world, and we stabilized our stuff.
Yep.
We would be going, oh yeah, we saw a hot market. Oh wait, let's take a breather. There's big things going on. Oh wait, it's strong. Let's take a breather.
Which is what happened with the Ukraine war last year. Like last fall, it was dead.
Yes, for certain. And so right now we are absolutely experiencing in certain markets that there is a bit of a pause in activity, just as people digest what's happening and they are diverting their attention in other directions, right? Now, not to say that it's sometimes sad to say, but as we go through these bigger events, the reality is as the dust starts to settle, and we can all hope and pray that the dust settles overseas sooner than later. We can hopefully all agree on that. With that being said, our market will return to normal. I mean, it's always a little sad for me to say. It just kind of, once the dust settles and people are less distracted, we will get back to where we were. But everybody
needs to do something with like their property.
People still need a place to live.
I mean, even when we talk about numbers coming down this year, 40%, there's still property moving because interest rates coming up so high. People still need to move for certain reasons.
But even looking forward to next year, right? 2024, it's an election year. This will be the sixth presidential election I have sold real estate in. And I can tell you almost verbatim, every year is almost the same. We should start off with a pretty strong year next year. But the minute that election gets in with sight, especially depending on how contentious it is, it will paralyze our market. It will pause our market as people start to say, hey, what's going to happen if so-and-so wins? What's going to happen if so-and-so wins? Once that election is said and got done,
then we return to normal.
Then all of a sudden we'll bounce back. But there will, mark our words, at least my words,
because it's
there will be a pause and a hesitancy leading up to the election, for certain.
It's the unknown.
See, I look at that as opportunity, though.
But we always talk about that.
Yes. Each of these pauses right now has opportunity for buyers out there that we haven't seen all year. So, so our hopes and prayers are with resolution in what's happening overseas. It's been obviously a very terrible time. We are hopeful that it resolves in a positive outlook with as least amount of bloodshed as possible. Okay, let's move on from that.
All right, saving for down payments. What's the best way to do it?
Oh, that's a good one, right?
Down payments are huge, especially in a high interest rate market, right? It's easier, like more money you put down, the better your payment is going to be on a monthly.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about like real estate as a ladder. Sometimes getting on is the hardest. But still, as we've talked about other investment strategies, sometimes you have your first property, but you want to hold it as part of your investment strategy, so you're saving up for a down payment again. I think first and foremost, everyone should start with some level of a budget. Most of us, if we're not budgeting, sometimes I'm included in this, we just don't know where our money's going, right? So a general awareness with where the money's going. I can tell you, I remember when Matt and I started dating some 20 years ago, I remember he had a affinity towards having all of his coffee out. And he loves his coffee. So one of the things I said to him when we got to the point where we could have some conversations like that was, do you have any idea how much money you actually spend on coffee? And he had no idea. And we calculated it one day.
Going to the coffee shop or going like at the house?
Going to the coffee shop. Either one. But going out, getting a $6 Starbucks grande whatever. And we calculated it, and he was spending like $10,000 a year on his coffee habit. It was astronomical. So really quickly, it was one of those things that right? It's definitely for certain properties. We said, okay, hey, you can amend this easily, right? This is, don't deprive yourself from it.
Yeah.
Cut down. You don't need 4 coffees out a day, maybe 1.
Yeah.
From that perspective, do the rest at home, at the office, wherever it is. But getting a budget, getting an awareness with where your money goes. Most people, myself included, are usually surprised that there's a lot of frivolous spending in what we do, and some small modifications can add up really, really quickly.
Yeah.
The other big thing I think is that a lot of people don't know about, right? What is the benefit of where inflation and the interest rate mess is at? Is that we've got a lot of interesting savings account products that are helping people to yield better returns, right? A normal savings,
like a CD or
I think I read that a normal savings account right now, you get, it's like 1/3%. That's what I think the interest rate is at on a normal. So it's nothing, right? You get no money. But there's a lot of products that are taking advantage of the interest rate market right now.
Totally.
And so that you could do a high yield savings account where you essentially put your money into a savings account for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. For starting, I've seen them around 4.5% up to 6.5%.
Yeah.
So if you have money that you're not using, you're specifically trying to save from here, that's not being put into other investment accounts, rather than tying it up in something, you can do a shorter term piece that's going to yield a higher return right off the bat. From that perspective, there's a lot of online banks. You can check at your bank yourself. I know Chase has a lot of great products with that too. So it's one of those ways that make your money make money.
Yeah, totally.
So
I mean, there is another like app that's out there as well, like in terms of like the overage,
the spending.
The Acorn. No, Acorn is like the other app that's out there. So when
I haven't heard of that one.
Spending, it actually rounds up your change and puts it into a separate account.
Oh, I like that.
So then you like have this money that's just growing over time, and maybe you just don't touch it, and that's your down payment money.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely that's great things. The other thing I'd say, and we deal with this a lot in our industry, is we have a lot of people that want to gift funds.
Totally.
They actually just raised the annual gift amount that is not taxable.
Yeah.
It was $16,000 in 2022, and it's raised to $17,000 in 2023. And basically, what that means is that you can get a gift from a family member, from somebody else that is non-taxable. So a lot of times we have parents that want to assist, or family members that have the ability to assist in somebody buying a home. Now they can do it and not have any tax on that money. Especially this time of year, what's great to know is that if somebody really wants to help, give a gift right now in 2023, knowing that you can gift again in 2024 and help somebody on their way without paying some taxes coming up too. So that's another important thing. Back to the budgeting real quick, because I think this is a really, really big thing. We've got the holiday season amongst us. Budgeting is super important, right? This is the time of year that you just get so excited to give and spend and do more. Once again, put a plan together ahead of time, because the holidays...
You're making gifts.
I have the girls make gifts every year.
Amanda has like the popsicle sticks out. She's like, hey, I gave you...
No, but...
I bought you a house. It's like a Lincoln log.
I truly believe, right? Especially, this might be the parent in me, like, I love special gifts. To me, I can't tell you the most expensive gifts that I've probably been given in my life, but I can tell you the ones that people put thought and energy into. And that's why every year the girls make gifts. We tend to give our honey out for gifts because we want people to, it's special. Like for me, gifts are not about the price tag. They're all about the special aspect of it. But even when you're looking for things to do around town, because it can be an expensive time, don't derail your home purchase goals just because you get caught up in what's happening in the holidays. So I think budgeting, but some other great things too.
There is one thing that I also do want to point out with down payments. I've had a lot of clients put their down payment money into a stock account and try and grow it through stocks, but stocks are volatile. So just remember that. So I've had clients be like, my whole down payment just got lost in the stocks.
Went down the toilet.
Last year, stocks got hit really hard.
Yeah.
You know, you had a really good run up in 2021, and then 2022 hit, and then they were like, well, I just lost 30%, 40% of my whole down payment.
And that's where I think those high yield savings accounts are
really
fantastic.
Nice. Diversify it. If you're going to do a stock account, do something that's going to be not as risky.
For certain.
So maybe like nice like dividend stock that's going to pay you on your money, and you're not going to see a ton of growth, but you're kind of hedging the bet with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree. Lots of great ways to do it. Anyways, we wrapped up for today.
Yeah. Awesome.
Until next time, Chicago.
Until next time.